All right, my friends, welcome back to Frog Boy X1 Gaming and Tech Reviews. I'm Andrew, and today we have another care package from AMD. So let's go ahead and check this bad boy out. We got the scissors that will open the box. Very nice scissors. These are Westcott, I believe. So let's see what's in the box. We got some paper, some packing, some more packing. All right, guys, this is pretty cool. More packing. So, what do you guys want to see first? I know what I want to see first. We have an aluminum phone stand. So let's take a look at this. An aluminum phone stand, and it does say AMD. Ooh, that is pretty cool. You know what I want to honestly see with that? Ooh, dang, the phone stand's gonna hold the Ally ROG. Nice, that is badass. Then we have two AMD stickers. That is pretty sweet. We also have a new AMD hat. This will be for when I go and play golf. Very nice hat, very nice. Ooh, check this one out. I like that one too. That one's nice, that one's gray. It says advanced micro devices. Very, very cool. So, my friends, look at this. You know, guys, when I started PC gaming, I never really saw myself as a PC gamer, to be completely honest with you. I have always been more of like that console guy, you know. I'd buy my consoles, I'd play my games. I would, you know, just have fun with that and you know, just get the experience that a console would give you. And I would always get super hyped for each generation of console. You know, I'd be like, yeah, they're going to have better graphics or this or that. And I was always just so excited to see the next cool thing, you know, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be cooler. And so when I switched over to PC during this channel, I didn't really know what to expect. And, you know, I remember back before switching to PC, okay? I remember back, you know, we were all like really excited about like art. I was really excited about RDNA 2. And I just happened to watch the announcement for RDNA 2, okay? So RDNA 2 was coming out. We were getting the consoles, the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5. And I remember, I don't know why. I mean, I was an Xbox fan. Never watched an NVIDIA showcase. Never, not one time. But I remember watching the AMD one. And they come out, you know, and they're talking about RDNA 2 and how exciting it was and like the pricing for it, and you know, came out with like the 6900 XT and the 6800 XT, and I remember looking at those and I'm like damn, you know, thinking in my head, because I think it was like $900 or $1,000 or something, like $990. I don't remember the exact price for the 6900 when they announced it, but I was like, damn, I could buy it. I could buy that. I remember thinking in my head like, damn, I could buy one of those. But at that point, I was like, I'm a console gamer, you know, and just always thought. But then you fast forward, you know, about, I think I started this channel. It was like March, April, or May. It was May. It was like May. Okay, it was like May 13th. I uploaded my first video, and I was fully in the consoles, you know. But I'm not even joking, guys. It only took the community about 7 or 8 months to convince me to buy a freaking PC. That's crazy. And so I ended up going with NVIDIA. Look at those socks. Those are badass. And look, somebody in the community actually donated or sent me this care package. Okay, they're like, look, man, I like what you do for AMD, and they're like, I want to send you a gift, you know. And same person that sent me the gift last time, you know, all the hats and everything. And I was just like, dude, that is freaking awesome, man. He's like, yeah, we need to get you some more gear and stuff. So now we're here looking at like the socks and stuff. And these are freaking pretty cool. Like I like these little care packages. It's pretty awesome. So a little while longer. Ooh, look at this. Stainless steel. So a little while after, you know, I end up getting into PC gaming. I started, you know, with the NVIDIA thing, and, you know, the 3060 Ti pre-built. I ended up buying that and checking that out. And, you know, that was like $1,700 for this pre-built. I remember very vividly. I spent like $1,700 on this pre-built, and dude, I freaking love these AMD cups, man. These are so cool. I actually use the other one quite often, and that's cool. I like this one, the way it looks. Boom, boom. But I ended up going with that NVIDIA, and I had the 3060 Ti, and you know, at first, man, like the honeymoon phase. Okay, I mean, the honeymoon phase with that was like, oh yeah, this is cool, and I was like, oh, this is good, and you know, I was thinking, you know, in teraflops still then. You know, I was like, yeah, the Xbox Series X is freaking 12 teraflops. This is 16 teraflops, and I just remember thinking like, yeah, this is good. Like, and I was happy with that, you know, at first, you know, and then that honeymoon phase kind of wore off pretty quickly, and I was like, all right, well then I need to get like a 3080 10 gig, you know. My mistake was watching when new games, because I would play a lot of games. I mean, that's the whole point of the channel, is the video games and stuff, right? So I'm looking at games like freaking A Plague Tale Requiem, okay? Coming out and saying, oh, you need this and this and this to run it. And I'm like, dude, I just bought a 3080 so I could play 4K. And trust me, man, I was angry, but I was upset, you know, when I'm getting like 1440p-ish and stuff, you know, playing that game or whatever. And then I'm playing like Spider-Man Remastered, and I'm just trying to play, you know, some of these games that are coming out. And at that point, I didn't quite understand what was going on. And then, you know, then we get close to the 40 series launch, okay? Start talking, because I think I bought the 3060 in like January, and then by October I had upgraded to, oh, maybe it was later. But I ended up upgrading in October on my birthday to the 3080 10 gig. And then, you know, a couple months later, the new generation's coming out. We got AMD and we got NVIDIA sitting there talking about these things, and I'm thinking like, gosh dang, dude, the 4070 or the 5080 is super, or the 4080 is way more expensive. It's like $1,200, and then the 4070 Ti or the 4070 Super and the 4070 and all of that stuff are like way freaking. I was getting mad. And I just remember thinking to myself, you know, because I was at this point where I was like, dude, I'm done chasing this stuff. NVIDIA left kind of like this bad taste in my mouth. It had me thinking that, and for some reason I was feeling like I needed to upgrade every generation, just because, you know, like I said, it all comes back to the games. I'd be reading the recommended specs and the specs, you know, that would be coming out, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, gosh damn, dude, I need to buy a better card all the time to play these games. And trust me, it still goes on today. You still got games coming out saying you need like this and this and this to play them at like high-end, top-end settings and all of that stuff. But that's a marketing thing, my friends. That is a marketing thing. It is a marketing thing between the game developers and the hardware manufacturers to always consistently make you feel like you need something bigger and better. Well, I ended up going with the RX 7900 XT. I was like, man, I'm going to try AMD. Because I was at the point where I was like, man, I'm just going to stick with the PlayStation and the Xbox and just keep making content for that. You know what? When I was pretty new into PC, the community was still really heavy around the console side of things. And I ended up getting that 7900 XT and having to rebuild my whole rig because the pre-built that I had it wasn't even going to fit in the case. So I had to do something. I had to go and rebuild the whole PC. Had to basically essentially build a whole new PC around that. Still got that same case, the HFlow 7, and you know, ended up going with the AM4. AM5 was out, but I ended up going with AM4, playing around with that for a while. And now we're at a point where I think I stuck with AM4 just due to the fact that the my CPU, my 5800X was AM4, so I just ended up staying with AM4. Just got a new board. The board in that HP Omen was proprietary. You couldn't use it on the new one. I mean, you could, but the power button and all of that stuff was completely proprietary, and it just wouldn't work. Like it was like that thing was. It wasn't a horrible build, like it was incredible, but it was terrible for doing what you were trying to do. So, but after getting that 7900 XT, I just knew that like AMD was that experience that I really liked. Oh, look at this. We got another XL optimal layout. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Boop. Oh man, is that freaking AMD? Together we advance? Would you look at that, man? Together we advance. Ah, man, I love these freaking giant. That's actually pretty freaking sweet too. I actually like the color of that. That looks pretty cool. I like that. Got a little bit of pinks and purples and blues and everything in there. It looks a little bit. Whoa, those scissors aren't gonna survive. So I mean, that looks kind of cool. So that's a long one too. That's longer than the one I got over there. So I might actually use this one more. So we'll have to just let that thing kind of simmer out. Ooh. And so I ended up doing like the whole AMD thing, and I just knew that like, ooh, what's this? What is this? Let us take a look at this. Are you freaking serious, dude? It's an AMD freaking jersey. Dude, that is freaking, that's like a biker, it's like a biker jersey. I mean, I knew immediately that I was Team AMD. There was nothing that anybody was going to be able to do to change my mind. I just knew that going with AMD and like going forward with AMD was going to be one of those choices that I made pretty early on after getting that 7900 XT. And then, you know, as the generation, you know, went on with RDNA 3, I had started buying, you know, more of the cards. The next one I bought was I went out and I got that. I mean, look at that freaking AMD, man. That's just so badass. I mean, it looks so handsome on me. Oh yeah, that there's gonna keep me nice. I mean, it even makes my muscles kind of stick out a little bit. But I already knew straight up after getting that 7800 XT as well. So that was the second card I bought. I bought that 7800 XT, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at that and I'm just like, gosh dang, man, I freaking love this card. 16 gigabytes of VRAM, you know, really solid 1440p card, was easy to, you know, even play games at 4K and stuff like that. And, you know, I look back across that generation, and then I was just always amazed at just how robust each individual card in its bracket actually performed. And so then the 7600 XT comes out, the 16 gigabyte version, you know, the one that everybody said was a piece of trash card and you would never use a VRAM and it was just pointless and all of that stuff. You know, all the professionals, you know, all the experts on YouTube told us that card was complete trash and it would never amount to anything, and 16 gigabytes of VRAM was just pointless, and you know, the whole spiel. And I got that card and I looked at it, you know, like I do with every product that I buy, from a child's point of view. I hope you noticed that. From a child's point of view, I'm looking at this 7600 XT, okay, and I'm playing it with that child mindset, you know, a console gamer. And I'm like, oh man, I want to see what it'll do on 4K. And I'm sitting there and I'm playing games at 4K. I'm playing games easily at 1440p, 1080p. This card is just phenomenal. You know, I'm just like, gosh, damn. Even the very entry level card from AMD is on fire. On fire. Like, this card is absolutely incredible. Giving me, you know, a gaming experience that I'm just like, wow, this is quite good. And I knew right then with that 7600 XT that most of the stuff you hear on the internet about PC gaming, a lot of it is more out of, I would say, not necessarily marketing, but more along the lines of cut down AMD at every chance you can get. And I don't understand why though. See, that's the thing that I've been trying to figure out for the last 4 years. Why? Why do we cut AMD down? Why do we talk like AMD's prices should be cheaper? Why do we demand better or more? Why do we demand more for AMD while expecting to pay less than what we would get from NVIDIA? Okay, like this is a massive question, like, that needs to be answered. Like why is it that we are, not we, but, you know, content creators in general, like, why is it that AMD is held to this unrealistic standard that people basically, you know, I think it's funny, you know, because I mean, like, obviously when 40 series launched and they said that frame generation wasn't coming to 30 series, and all of us were looking at them like, what do you mean, NVIDIA? My 3080 has a 320-bit bus. This card is stronger in terms of like a 4070 or 4060 or any of that stuff, and you're telling me those cards can support frame generation, but a 3080 can't. It was enough to get me to switch to AMD, or at least give AMD a try. I mean, switch, you know, was a pretty bold term, but at least give them a try, you know, because either way, I was in my mindset at the time, I had to buy another card to continue playing the games that I wanted to play. That was my mindset at the time, and I know that a lot of people think that way as well. I know they do, because I did, and I am that average freaking gamer, that average casual gamer. I am the best consumer you're ever gonna meet. Like, life is too short. I like to consume products. I like to use them. I like to utilize them. I like to have fun, and trust and believe I get my money's worth out of everything I buy. And so I look back at that situation, you know, of everybody bashing the 7600 XT for bringing 16 gigs of VRAM to it. And then I look at, like, you know, like the 4060 16 gigabyte GPU, okay? And I look back and I think about that, and the 7600 XT got its ass handed to it for it, but the 4060 Super was like, oh yeah, and people were still recommending this, you know? Look, I get that DLSS is more mature or whatever, and trust me, I got a video coming up on that after this one, but that's just quite interesting that everybody goes out of their way to discredit AMD. So we got another thing in here. Ooh, another freaking shirt. Let's see what this is. Ooh, man, it's my AMD jersey. Look at that, bro. Skis. Ooh, I freaking love it, man. AMD. Team AMD. Let's get the packing manifesto and look down at the manifesto. But let's see that one again. You know, the way that AMD gets treated when it comes to the PC space, and, other content creators, we have to look at this from a more holistic, realistic point of view. AMD, my friends, is a good brand. They make good products, great socks, beautiful hats, and graphics cards, CPUs, APUs, data centers, and more. AMD is a competitor. AMD is a solid brand and a good investment. At least I know that, through my own experience with AMD. I look at the experience that I've had with AMD, and I look at the products, the quality of the products, the longevity of the products, especially like the RX 580 that I've been testing, and we'll go back over that again, and we'll talk about that. But when I look at this market and the way it kind of coalesces, because I used to work in retail, I used to run a game store, like Game Crazy, okay? And the competition between Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo, it was fierce. Sega Dreamcast stuff, it was fierce, okay? Like you would have the PlayStation reps that would come in and talk to us, and you'd have the Xbox reps and stuff like that, and they were pretty cool. They were pretty cool back then, but Xbox back then was kind of a new player, okay? Because we're still talking, original Xbox in between, 360 stuff like that back in the early 2000s when I started, and it was like Xbox was like the new kid on the block, and they were like happy and excited, and they were, they would give you access to stuff and let you play it and stuff. We'd get some games and stuff, early and stuff like that. We'd get to play them and stuff, and but PlayStation, man, like. They were, I don't want to say ruthless, because they weren't really ruthless, but they were just like, you could see the different types of energy from PlayStation, just coming off a high of pretty much knocking Nintendo aside at that point, PlayStation 2 doing very well in the prime of PlayStation. Just, my gosh, and the level of excitement, and just how, people received PlayStation versus Xbox. It was like Xbox. It was. I'm not even gonna lie. It was kind of a hard sell. Trying to get somebody to even consider an Xbox. It was. Everybody would come in like, oh, I need the new PlayStation. Trading in all their stuff to try to get the PlayStation 2 and stuff like that. And it was wild. It was wild. And so I see that same type of energy right now with AMD and NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is just that one that like everybody thinks about. It's on everybody's mind. When you talk about PC, you talk about PC gaming, you automatically just assume that NVIDIA is the only real option for you. I think in passing, people know a little bit about AMD, and I think the better the CPU side of AMD starts to do, the more name recognition AMD is starting to get, because they've always kind of been there, but they've always been like that. Oh man, I'm going with Intel. Oh, I don't know. You know what I mean? They've always just been like that. Everybody's always just had this like negative opinion about, not necessarily negative, just more ignorant opinion about AMD. And that's what I think it is. It's ignorance, because that was me. I was ignorant about AMD. You hear about Intel, you hear about NVIDIA, even though Intel is not really on top of the things like it used to be, it's still, that name brand, that name recognition is still enough to where if you walk into a store to buy a pre-built and it's got an Intel, people are still like, yeah, Intel's good, man, Intel's good. You still got that. And AMD is still amazing to me, honestly, that they're still there and they're still pushing. Not only are like they kicking butt with CPUs, but now they've got APUs, Strix Halo, okay? That is freaking pretty wild. That is pretty wild. Like, you look at what they're doing with AI and all of that stuff. I mean, like the AI thing to us gamers is one thing or another, but it's going to affect us eventually. Like it's already affecting our frame generation and our upscaling. And eventually AI is going to get to a point where it can coexist inside our games as we're playing them, and essentially being alive and well inside your game as, you know, the other part of you know, like the NPCs or something, you know, like the world dynamics or something, you know, like maybe they'll be able to offload like weather simulation or all kinds of stuff to AI for AI to just create these incredible freaking epic set pieces that are like that aren't the same. They're consistently evolving and doing something new, and, you know, within the parameters of the game and stuff. And like, those are the kind of things that like really keep me going in gaming, and like, damn dude, this is gonna be awesome. And so I look at that and I feel this like sense of like, look, I know a lot of people don't know AMD, okay? I know you don't know AMD the way I know AMD. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you haven't had that experience, that you haven't, you know, been given. It's not your fault that you haven't been given a good influence or good understanding of what the AMD experience really is. Now, to me, I feel like AMD caters a lot more to video gamers. They definitely cater a lot to the gamers, and they try to, at least up until UDNA comes out in the next generation, have tried to separate the more expensive part of the AMD stuff and kind of give you as much as they can towards your gaming. That's why they've always been like Rasta Kings and all of this stuff, or the best budget and stuff, because they're not selling you stuff you don't need essentially to play video games, but they're still selling you a comparable product to where you'll be able to deal with a lot of things. And so I've got a video coming up today that we're going to go over some of this stuff, and I just wanted to sit here and kind of talk to you guys about AMD as, you know, we go through this box and we check out these really cool this really cool care package that somebody sent. Now, the person that sent this is not affiliated with AMD in any way, shape, or form, so this is not affiliated by AMD, but it is cool. It is cool, and I like it. I really do appreciate the AMD stuff that's been sent my way. So if you guys like this content, do not forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.